Hello Aries, my name is Keith Haswell and I'm a professional astrologer with 40 years experience in the business and over 30,000 clients worldwide. It's my pleasure, Aries, to welcome you to this particular reading of your horoscope for the moon phases for January 2015. Now the moon moves very fast, Aries, and it goes through a particular sign of the zodiac in only 2.5 days. So it's rather insignificant in terms of its movement through a particular house. It goes through all of the 12 houses and all the 12 signs of the zodiac in only 30 days. You know, Aries, you've got a lot of enthusiasm there inside of yourself. You're a fire sign, and you've got a tremendous capacity to commence and start things and get things going. You're an initiator. And you've got a lot of enthusiasm for your ideas in life, but you can be rather impulsive in life at times. Now, I want to help you to become more of who you really are through all of the videos that I do. I do every one of them with the idea of helping you and others to become more of who you really are, okay? Now, these moon phases are very important in terms of its relationship to the sun. When the moon gets into a conjunction with the sun, Aries, it's what's called a conjunction there, and it's a new moon. And that begins a two-week phase whereby you can commence and start new projects and ideas and get them going in a healthy way. And then when it's opposite to the sun, it's what's called a full moon. And that's a time to consolidate the gains that you made in the previous couple of weeks in terms of commencement and start of projects. Now, the new moon falls in a different house in your horoscope than it does for a Taurus or a Gemini or a Cancer or a Leo. So it's an individual message to you, Aries, about where you can commence and start new projects and ideas. Now, the last new moon phase started on the 22nd of December and it finishes on the 4th of January, and that fell in your 10th house. Now, that means that you have a 2-week window of opportunity, Aries, to commence and start projects that are connected with the 10th house of your horoscope in that 2-week period from the 22nd of December to the 4th of January, when it becomes a full moon. Now, the 10th house is the house of your career and your business, and to do with parents and dealings with government departments. So anything to do with those things, your career, your business, dealings with parents and dealings with government departments, are favoured during that particular 2-week period to make new starts and commencements in business, changes in your career, expansion and growth in business or expansion and growth in your career. Dealings with parents will go well, and dealings with government departments will have the energies of the universe on your side. And then on the 4th of January, it's a full moon phase, which is a consolidating phase for 2 weeks then, to consolidate the gains that you've made and the things that you've commenced in that previous 2-week period. Now then there's another new moon phase for you, Aries, in the 20th of January. And that falls in your 11th house, which is different than what it is for the other signs. So it's therefore an opportunity for you from the 20th of January onwards for 2 weeks to make new starts and commencements to do with the 11th house. Now, the 11th house is the house of friends, Aries. It's the house of friends, it's the house of group activities, it's the house of other people's children. So anything to do with other people's children, anything to do with new friendships, anything to do with group activities are all favoured from the 20th of January onwards for 2 weeks to commence and start new friendships, to make plans for group activities and so forth, and anything to do with other people's children, such as grandchildren or anything like that, are all favoured during that 2-week period from the 20th of January, okay? Now I also want to look at the movement of Jupiter for you, Aries, because Jupiter is a very expansive planet and it brings great benefit for us wherever it sits in our horoscope. And Jupiter takes 12 months to transit through a particular house of our horoscope, and therefore it has a different import for you than it does for the other signs. Now Jupiter has been sitting in the 5th house of your horoscope, Aries, for the last 9 months. So that's been a great opportunity for you, which you've already noticed. You've had a lot of happiness through children, if they're in your life. You've had a lot of happiness to do with romance and love and the social side of life generally in the last 9 months. You've perhaps been for a distant journey, maybe to visit a child if you're old enough, and to have a child visit you perhaps in that last 9 months. It's been a good time for you generally to do with romance, love and the social side of life, matters relating to fun and matters relating to children during the last 9 months. But Jupiter turns retrograde in January, and that's very, very important, because when Jupiter is retrograde, Aries, it means that we can have bad judgment. So bad judgment can come in regard to decisions and choices about relationships and romance and the social side of life if you're in the market for a relationship, and matters relating to children. So you can put trust in children which is not warranted. You can confide in a child which is not warranted. Bad judgment surrounds you when Jupiter is retrograde, and matters relating to romance and love and the social side of life. So it's the time in the month of January when you're likely to get involved in a secret relationship or a deceptive relationship or a relationship which is not in your own best interests, Aries. So just be careful of your judgment there, to do with all 5th house matters, to do with speculation, gambling, the social side of life, matters relating to children and matters relating to travel and things like that. If you're travelling overseas during that particular month, it's a time to be cautious of your judgment and decisions and choices that you might make, because they can be in error. Now also, when Jupiter is retrograde, Aries, it impacts upon 2 other houses of your horoscope that are ruled by Jupiter, and they are different in your case than what they are in other signs. So it's an individual message for you about your 9th house and your 12th house. Now the 9th house is to do with travel. So you could have bad judgment during the month of January whilst travelling. So be careful of who you trust and confide in, and watch your possessions and so forth if you're travelling in January. It can be bad judgment connected with confidences that you make to do with in-laws and relatives on your husband's side or your wife's side if you have a spouse. And there can be bad judgment for you to do with legal matters and matters relating to your sense of expansion in whatever way. So you can have bad judgment to do with decisions and choices that you make in any of those areas to do with the 9th house, to do with travel, expansion, in-laws and so forth, and legal matters as well. Now also it impacts negatively upon the 12th house of your horoscope. So you can be involved in some sort of secret activities which are not in your own best interests. You can have secret worries and insecurities inside of yourself. Habit patterns of behaviour that you feel as if you've outgrown can come back in with that sort of thing. So you can be your own worst enemy when the 12th house is impacted negatively, okay? So bad judgment in regard to slipping back into old habit patterns that you feel as if you've outgrown, and you can make decisions and choices which are not in your own best interests to do with patterns of behaviour which are self-destructive, okay? Now I also want to look at the movement of Saturn for you. Saturn is a very slow moving body. It's a taskmaster, and it is taking 2.5 years to go through a particular house of our horoscope. And it's a different house for you, Aries, than what it is for the other signs. In your case, it's been going through the 8th house of your horoscope for the last 2.5 years. So you've noticed already the impact of Saturn in your 8th house. The 8th house is the house of death, so there's probably been the death of somebody around you, not necessarily someone close, but someone that you know has passed away in the last 2.5 years, I would suggest. There's also been a lot of frustrations in making changes within yourself over the last couple of years. So you've slipped back into old habit patterns that you felt as if you'd outgrown. You found a lot of difficulties making changes inside of yourself that you wanted to let go of, habit patterns of behaviour that are not in your own best interest. So you've had problems making those changes inside of yourself during the last 2.5 years. Joint finances also fall in the 8th house of your horoscope. So that means that you've had a lot of frustrations to do with joint finances, a lot of difficulties with regard to joint finances over the last 2.5 years, okay? You haven't come to this particular video, Aries, by chance. You've been brought to this particular video at this particular time because your higher self reckons that you're ready to make changes inside of yourself that you weren't ready to make even a month ago. You've been calling out, in other words, to something higher than yourself to help you to make changes inside of yourself. Now, changes come, Aries, through the avenue of necessity. Necessity, in other words, we feel as if we need to make changes inside of ourselves out of necessity to help us out of a financial hole, or to help us to hang on to a relationship, or to help us to hang on to a job, or to help us in some other way to improve our health, or whatever. Out of necessity, we make those changes inside of ourselves. So that's one avenue of change. Another avenue of change is the avenue of fear and pain. Now, fear is, you're never going to get rid of fear. Fear is a necessity. There's two main emotions in the universe, Aries, and that is love and fear. Hate is not the opposite of love. Hate is a derivative of fear. So there's two polar opposites, is love and fear. And you're never going to get rid of fear because fear is vital and necessary for your growth and your protection and your well-being. Fear of heights, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of humiliation. All of these fears bring about changes within ourselves. And the avenue of pain also is vital and necessary. You're never going to get rid of that. So that is what brings about change within ourselves, is through a pain, especially emotional pain. So Aries, all of us are making changes inside of ourselves through emotional pain. But there is another avenue which is much more elegant. And that avenue of change is gratitude. Gratitude to God, Goddess, all that is, for the gifts that they have bestowed upon us. They've bestowed the gift upon us of eternal life. We can never ever die. All of us have lived heaps of lifetimes. Now also the gift of being able to consciously create all of the events of our life consciously through conscious choice. Now most of us don't do that, Aries. It's not just Aries, it's all of us. Fall back on creating our reality and the events and conditions of our life through subconscious choice. All of us have the same raw materials, Aries. And they are attitudes and beliefs and thoughts and feelings. And those attitudes and beliefs and thoughts and feelings can be negative. And they sponsor decisions and choices. And the decisions and choices, if our attitudes and beliefs are and our thoughts and our feelings are negative, such as fear and anxiety and doubt and insecurity and low self-esteem and problems with our self-image and martyrhood and shame and guilt and so forth, if we have all of those negativities there within ourselves, and they're the things that are creating the events and conditions of our life, Aries, then what sort of conditions and events are we going to experience? So it's time for us all to spruce up those raw materials and turn them into positive attributes and qualities and principles and values that our higher self wants us to develop. And so a contribution for you to be able to help you to do that and to make those changes inside of yourself through the avenue of gratitude is a gift that I'm prepared to give you by visiting my website. The website address will pop up on the screen shortly, so you can write that down. I've got 12 CDs there at my website that you can download, and that's free of charge for you. Okay, that's out of my first book, What Really Matters, a book on astrology, meditation and reincarnation. So your higher self has brought you to this particular video at this time, perhaps to watch that particular video that you're watching now, and also to listen to this first free CD. So go to my website and download that first free CD. It's with my voice, with beautiful backing music. I take you in and out of meditation time and time again. And if you like the message that's in that free CD, then download CD number 2, because this is a message perhaps that your higher self wants you to hear. And also, sometimes I do what's called a free horoscope number 1. Now that means that I've got to do your horoscope chart. Now I can't always guarantee, Aries, that this free horoscope number 1 is going to be there, because when I do put that up, I sometimes have 40 orders in one day. So that means I've got to do 40 horoscope charts in one day and analyse each of those charts and give you a 7-page report on what I see there in that chart, free of charge. Now this is to do with the moon in your horoscope. This is an individual thing for you, Aries, not the same as all other Aries or Aries rising sign, because your moon is in a different location by sign and by house. And I tell you what that means to do with your emotions by the sign and the house that it sits in. And Mercury rules your mind and your communication skills. And where that sits by sign and by house has a different message to you that your higher self perhaps wants you to hear. And Venus rules your love nature, and where that sits by sign and by house has a different import to you again. And Mars rules your energy levels, and where that sits by sign and by house has a different message again to you. So I report in that 7-page report an analysis of what these planetary placements by sign and by house means for you individual Aries from your horoscope, not from anything else that's in somebody else's horoscope, but from your individual horoscope, and that's free of charge for you, that 7-page printout. But as I say, I can't always guarantee that that's going to be there, okay? So it's nice to have this opportunity to be able to talk with you. I look forward to working further with you through my CDs that will always be available there for you. And also if that horoscope number 1 is available, to be able to access that. And I look forward to working further with you should you decide to go further into my deeper intensives out of my second book, which I won't bother going into here. So I thank you for your attentiveness here, Aries, and look forward to working further with you should you decide to take the next step. Thank you.